So you've decided to start a business, and you know that you need working capital, and you've gotten to the point where you realize in order to get that, you may need a loan. Speaking with Keith Girouard from the Mass Small Business Development Center Network. And so, Keith, how do you get a business loan? We've heard, from a lot of business owners that sometimes can be challenging, but there's a process that you have to go through.
Sure. If you need financing, a loan is a good way in which to get that type of financing. There are other ways. There are other types of financing. I'd just like to briefly touch on. Certainly, there's investment. So if you need financing, you can sometimes get investment. Okay, so there's a possibility there. That can be both debt and equity, but it comes as an investment. You can also sometimes tap into your already existing debt instruments that you have. Like say you have a home equity line of credit. That's pretty cheap money actually to borrow. Some people feel uncomfortable about it because it's attached to their home.
Yeah, but a lot of people want to sort of separate the personal from the business.
They do, and I mean you can do it financially, but this idea that it might tap into the equity or that might jeopardize my home becomes important. And I certainly appreciate that. Just want to point out too that it is another option in going out and getting a new loan or a commercial loan for your business, and it's also pretty cheap money. Right. But there's other ways that you can get financing other than a loan, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. If you are going to go for a loan, there are where can you go? Well, most people say I can go to a bank. Yes, you certainly go to a bank, and the local banks here are terrific in terms of doing that. There are also funds. There are sort of loan pool funds that either municipalities might have or economic development organizations or other types of organizations have. They're smaller pools of money, but they do loan money for business purposes, so you can go there. Generally, their interest rates are a little bit higher than a bank, so I usually advise them to go to a bank, but they're still available. And also, as I mentioned before, investors will loan money at times if it's a good investment. So those are some of the sources where you can go.
But in all of these cases, I suspect that before you're able to either get a loan or get an investment, in most cases, as long as the investor is savvy, that you're still going to have to be prepared to get there. So, having things like a business plan and, having all your ducks in a row, I mean, it takes some time, energy, and effort to do that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the suggestions I have before you begin that process is where might you go for a loan? And we generally advise that you go to a place that you already have a financial relationship. So if you have an account at a bank or a credit union or something like that, then try there. And that would be probably a pretty good place. But as you point out, John, you need to be prepared for that, because that loan fund or that bank or credit union is going to have a process. They're going to have an application process and an application form. You're going to need to fill that out. But as you point out, there's going to be some additional documents that they're going to need. They're going to need to have a business plan, and they're going to need to have a set of financial projections that you're going to need to supply them. You're also going to need to be prepared to provide tax forms and some personal financial statements. They're going to want to know a listing of your annual household expenses. And once they have that, they'll break it down on a monthly basis. And they're also going to want to know what your net worth is. So that requires that you're going to need to list out your assets and your liabilities. And essentially the difference between your asset and liabilities is basically your net worth. And they're going to make some ratios, they're going to do some calculations around that, and you're going to have to meet some underwriting criteria. But essentially they're going to be looking at those documents. So you're going to need to have those documents available. So you need to be prepared.
So even though it's your business, it sounds to me that it's important that your personal credit score, especially for a small business, because in many cases it's kind of you're the owner and you're responsible for all of it. And you suggested already that maybe tapping into a home equity loan could be a more cost-effective way of doing it, which in essence is personal. So even though the business is separate, you have to make sure your own credit score is good and your own household is in order for the bank to say, yeah, this is a good investment.
Yeah, in an earlier session we talked about the differences of business structures. So if you're a sole proprietor, for example, absolutely your personal finances are going to play a big role in it. But even if that's not the case, even if you set up an LLC or a sub-S corporation or a C corp or whatever, yes, because the bank's going to do some global what they call global assessment. So they're going to be looking at that specific situation, and they're going to be doing their debt to income ratios and various different ratios, but they're as it relates to that specific situation. But they're also going to do some global, which they're going to take your personal finances into account. And as you mentioned, John, your credit score is really important. Your credit score is really important. So if you're starting a business, you have no business credit at that point, so you really are relying on your personal credit scores. And that's become very important in terms of being able to get a loan.
And we're having our conversation with Keith Girouard, a great conversation about starting a business. Keith, how can people get in touch with you to learn more, especially for those here in the Berkshires?
Well, here in the Berkshires, you can call us, or you can call us from anywhere, I suppose. Our number is area code 413-499-0933. Again, that's 499-0933. Or they can just Google us, or they can go to our website, which is www.msbdc for Massachusetts Small Business Development Center, msbdc.org/Berkshire. There's lots of information about who we are and what we do. Our services are free, and they're confidential once you fill out a short form, which is available on the web.
Keith Girouard, a great pleasure speaking with you today. Wonderful information for small business owners, and highly recommend that people use the resources that are available, and you are one of those resources.
Well,
so
thank you, John. It's been a pleasure.